You are scared. And that's okay. I'm scared too. She's scared too. We're all scared. And what's going to actually support here is love. It's not going to be me being louder than you. The loudest person in the room is not the strongest. The one that has the most love inside of them is. And so that was so insightful. And I'm getting goosebumps right now and
I'm about
tearing
to cry.
up. It's true though, man. Like that was one of the greatest lessons I've learned. And it was directly in my face of, wow, what capacity do I have to love here?
Ooh, welcome to the Ignite You podcast. Stories of transformation,
Initiation,
depth,
and duality.
with a sprinkle of sass. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, brother. Welcome. That's good, right?
It's a frothy one today.
Frothy, delicious, creamy.
Wow.
Everything you want in a cacao.
Without a blender.
Without a blender.
How does he do it?
The recipe soon to come. So today is a very exciting day. Ryan Miller and I are back, baby.
We back.
We back in action. This is exciting. I missed recording these so much.
For sure.
We had a lot of fun.
I know. It's been 2 months.
A minute.
Yeah. Well, 2 months is a minute in street terminology.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
We're teaching you street terminology today.
Yep. That's what we're going into.
It has been a while, man.
It has been.
It does feel good, though. It does feel good to be back in the studio with the matcha cows. It feels so right to have our beverage and connect in and just drop into today's session. Like, it just feels really nice to be here.
All of that was amazing except for what you called the beverage. Because a matcha cow would never taste this silky. It's
Welcome
like
back to season 2.
Welcome back to season 2, crew. It's been so good. So good. We're rested, we're recharged, and we've got some amazing stuff coming at you this year. Yeah. More on that to come. But today, we wanted to drop into a little something special. We wanted to highlight why we decided to do seasons in the first place, highlight what prompted us to do this, and ultimately drop into the topic of preparing for the unknown, which is very contradictory because how do you prepare for what you don't know?
Some would say that makes no sense.
Some would.
And that's the point. It's not about being in and of the mind. It is beyond that. So we're going to go into a lot.
That's deep, man.
I know. It's not that deep. Well, we're going to be going into things that are deep today because we got some codes in the past couple months. And the reasons why, as Cam mentioned, we actually did stop the podcast. It wasn't chosen, but in a sense, we were prepared for it, even though we had no idea it would go down.
Ryan just hates recording these things, so he left.
I don't like it.
At all.
I don't like it for January and February. Like, I don't like it early in the year.
Yeah, because that's your prep time.
So I left.
Yeah.
My New Year's is 2.5 months.
Yeah. You take it very seriously.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the real reason.
That's the real reason.
But there's side reasons as well we're going to.
Couple side reasons. This was interesting because we launched this podcast. We're like, we're going to come out. We're going to be hitting people every single week with a new episode. It's going to be amazing. We're going to start doing interviews. It's going to be content flowing all the time. Let's get it. Let's go. And then,
No.
Did not go. And even more so, when this happened, we were in the middle of retreat. We're like, we're going to close this retreat. It's going to be amazing. The retreat's killing it. This is so good. No. The retreat ended up still being amazing.
Yeah,
the retreat didn't fall apart.
It was
Ryan had to leave before we closed the container, which is something that we would never like to do. But because of life circumstances and things that happened, that came up. And thus, we had to navigate, we had to move, we had to evolve, we had to shift, we had to grow. And it was a beautiful lesson for all of us. Now, obviously, there's still some very challenging aspects to why that happened and what you are moving through in that, along with Lauren, of course. At the same time, I'm sure there were a lot of codes in how you wanted to bring all of this forward and how you wanted to continue to live moving forward after this experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think when we're talking about preparing for the unknown, it's really about this cultivation of capacity. And Cam and I were talking about this just before the episode of how we wanted to capture what it is we're talking about. It is that, like, it is a cultivation of an internal capacity. It's beyond like, you know, planning out your savings, planning out these logistical pieces. If you don't have your internal savings planned out of your capacity, you're not going to be able to show up for life and what it has to throw at you. The unknown that comes forward that we all get sideswiped by every once in a while, whether in a micro or macro way, it comes up. And it did when we were in this retreat. We were just getting close to the end of the retreat. I think it was the second to last day.
Yeah.
And we were just out of an experience. We could say all the beautiful things about our retreat because it's the best one in the world for sure.
100%.
And, you know, like, not just saying that, like, it is for sure. And so we were at the tail end.
We teach humility at the retreat, if you didn't know.
It was amazing. It was. It was the first one we've done in Costa Rica in that length together.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful. And so I was excited to be there and hold space there and be part of that. And then to hear the news that came through at the second to last day. Cam already mentioned her name. It's my partner, Lauren, who those of you who follow me on social media, you already know this person and probably her story and what's come up since. Getting the news of something heavy that came through, which was she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so even when I say that, it doesn't sound real. Like, it still feels so strange, right? She's in her 20s and she's somebody that is very close to me. I've cultivated this relationship with that is the person I love most in this world. And so when I heard that, it just dropped to my knees. And nothing else mattered. As you all can imagine, when you hear something, and maybe you've heard something before of somebody passing or a diagnosis or something that happened in your life that just throws you off, it becomes the only thing that matters. This is what we're talking about. Having the capacity for moments like this. And that's not meaning, okay, tighten up and show up. It's like, fuck. I heard this news and I melted. I collapsed to the floor. Cam was nearby and I went over to Cam and just cried in his arms. Like, it was so intense for me. And moving that a little bit, then I, asked Lauren, what do you need right now? And then she wanted me to come over to her place. Obviously left the retreat and did that. So there's a little insight into the moment, into what happened and what we're talking about here. And we'll go more into that, about that journey, because it was probably one of the most, I would say, profound, but not in the way that I would usually think about that term. I usually think of profound as something amazing and beautiful and insightful, but profound in a way of like, wow, my life just shifted. And this isn't even my diagnosis. That experience of, oh, this just happened. What do I do now?
And I remember when you came to me and I could see it on your face, I knew something was very wrong. And I think this is something really important to share, and for anybody listening in on how to transform, how to move, how to navigate life, because it's going to happen that really hurts. It's going to happen that stings. People get sick, people get diagnosed, people get injured. You were talking to your friend this morning whose father just passed away, and all of these things happen. And we talk about capacity in from a place of creating the life that we want a lot. And we don't really talk about capacity from a place of almost having a bit of a backup plan for when inevitably goes sideways. Because if we're all tapped and completely wired on emotion because of trauma, because of pain, because of challenges, because of all of these various aspects of being human, and we don't have the right practices in place to give us that kind of reservoir, we're f***ed when things as intense or even much less intense than what you went through come up.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we're definitely going to get into the tools today, because with these episodes, we always want to usually have some sort of story, some sort of real experience, whether incredibly visceral or something that just recently happened that we want to share, and then ground it into, okay, what are your takeaways here? Like, what are you going to leave with that's actually going to prepare you or help you feel lit up for life? So we're definitely going to get into those tools, which I'm excited for.
So I'm curious, right? Just from kind of getting into this off the get-go, like what started moving through your mind, your body, your state as this came up? Like how did your emotional body, mental body, that type of thing shift?
Well, it was amazing because where we were, right? We were in this experience. I think we just went through a breathwork journey or something where we're holding space. And so I went from being a space holder of intense, incredible, beautiful, every single emotion possible in a space, as you know, as it went through in the breathwork experience. If you've ever been to one, you know it can be anything from an orgasm to a scream of terror, a cry, laugh, anything in between. So going from that to being like, oh, Lauren, you know, was checking in. Do I have space right now? Sure. Like, let me just see what's up. And she's somebody who has great, you know, communication skills. She's like, hey, do you have a second? Do you have space? Because I have something really heavy. So luckily I had somebody with the thought in mind of like, oh, I know you're facilitating. Do you have space? It's not like she just dropped this. I was like, yes, of course. Like whatever is going on, I have space for, which again is space. That could be literal time, and that can be internal capacity. I had space. I did, even though I just came from holding space. From that to finding out, it was this rush through my body of uncontrolled, like I couldn't even stop it if I tried, just tears, energy moving through my body, just like pouring out of my face. But I wasn't audibly crying because I wanted to hear what she was saying. So I was just like pouring tears. I wasn't audibly like weeping. And then, you know, how are you? What's coming up? She's like, I'm not even processing it yet. She wasn't crying. She's like, I'm not even processing it yet. This is still such a shock. Like, I'm in shock. So it's like, okay, what do you need from me right now? What's going to be helpful? She named it. And then she's like, I would love if you're here, but I know you're busy. I know this. I'm like, I'll be there. I'm coming over. As soon as I hung up, then even more wave, right? Because I was like, what? Completely collapsed, completely just like in turmoil in a sense where I'm just like, what does this mean? Because it was just, I have breast cancer. There was no insight. There was no, worst case scenario in my head, of course. And then seeing you, like, I was like, felt this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And then I just beeline it to Cam because I'm like, oh, Cam can like, I can just cry in his arms right now. He's somebody that can hold me in this. And I need to tell him. I need to let him know. So just walked over to you. That felt so good to be able to be in your space, which is, we're going to talk about that as well. And I think that is such a valuable piece in those moments, is to have somebody. Mm-hmm. And so just to be held by you. And you said beautiful things in that moment that I'll never forget. It was so simple. It was just, this is going to ask you to trust and surrender more than you ever have in your entire life. It's like, yes, you're right. And you continue to be right on that, because that is what happened throughout this journey. But it was just this overwhelming emotion moving so quickly. And then to hugging you saying that and being like, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to go show up for Lauren right now. And it didn't feel like block this emotion, don't let it out. It was like completely just blah, blah. And then, okay, I got to show up for her. She needs me. Yes. Like I've felt, because of what we've been doing and the work that I do and the work that we've done, the capacity was right there. It was like, I feel it, it's happening, and I need to go show up for her. Not stop the emotion, go be strong for her. It was like this completely different space of like, allow it, it'll come up in waves, we'll cry together, which we did, and so many things. It's not like I was just this kind of like rock that was like, I've got you, I feel nothing. It was this, I know what she needs, I need to be there for her. That kind of just capacity, exactly that. Like I can show up for you right now. Yes.
Now that's super important, man. And thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people, and you highlighted this beautifully, feel like suppression is taking action.
Yeah.
And if you have to take action, you have to suppress because you can't be a mess. And that's so far from the truth, because that's what causes trapped emotion. That's what causes trauma, is when we suppress and we suppress and we suppress. There's a reason why PTSD is so potent, so powerful. That's because soldiers, first responders, they're trained to suppress. Legitimately, this is something they are trained on. It causes trauma, and it blocks our ability to really create capacity.
Yeah.
And so I love that you named that. You just broke down, you felt, you snotted, you cried, and you went for it. And then after letting yourself feel what you felt, it was like clarity.
Yeah. Well, and on that bike too, the emotion shifted to like sad, sad, sad. And then I got on the bike to drive to her house, and it was just anger. It was like, what? Why, Lauren? Like all of these things of like, this isn't fair. Like that kind of, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
What the is this kind of energy? So I was just screaming on the bike. Ah! And then it would turn to crying. And then I would cry on the bike and then scream, cry. And then like 5 minutes before I got to her house, it was just moved. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I feel like it was this really, this beautiful space. But it came naturally. I didn't have to think about the space because of what we do. Like we do scream therapy every week. Like often when I feel anger, it's like, I just feel it. I go.
Yeah.
But if I didn't do that, I would have blocked it. I know in the past when I've gotten things that have come up, I would just kind of hold it and be like, okay, like don't let anybody see this, or it'll mean I'm weak, or it'll mean they don't think I can show up for them, or it'll mean yada yada. I'll get judged. But it's like, no, all of it. That's the only way you can actually show up as an open vessel. You have to allow all the emotion, or else you cannot show up for anyone else. It's true. And only because of the experiences we've been in was I able to do that in that moment for the first time, where I actually got the opportunity to be like, okay, this is what is necessary right now.
And so you were gone for what, 2 months about?
Yeah. We flew to New York together. 2 days later, she was like, got to get back. We were in Costa Rica, obviously. Got to get back to New York. I was like, cool, let's go. I got the tickets. I was like, let's get there. I'm with you. Like, I'm with you. I'm not like, we're going. Yeah. And I'm going to be with you in this journey.
And so over those 2 months, like you had doctors who were treating her like a number. You had family problems. You had like obviously holding space for your partner. You had different opinions, perspectives, all these different pains and traumas projected onto you and Lauren as a couple.
Yeah.
How did that continue? Did you have to continuously have these rage practices?
Yeah.
Like how did you navigate months of being in that environment that was obviously very emotionally tumultuous?
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like these environments that I've worked to not be in. Meaning, this is an environment. She's from Staten Island, and luckily it was a separate apartment connected to her parents' house. So it wasn't like a bedroom in their parents' house. That probably would have been different. Probably would have gotten an Airbnb at that point if that was the case. But it was an environment where I'm like I never wanted to live in this kind of place. That's why I moved to Bali. That's why I moved to Costa Rica. That's why I did this. But it's not that I was like, I don't want to be here. It was like, okay, how do we make this a healing container? How do we make what we have a place for healing and a place for expression and a place for whatever the needs to happen can happen here? Like, how can this be safe? How can this be as good as we can make it right now? And so I did put pressure on myself, of course, like in my book of like, I want to make this a certain way for her. What I had was every day, my own practice in the morning before she was even awake. I was like, I am without a doubt getting at least an hour in of non-negotiable movement of whatever wants to come up before I kind of take on the day with her, which having that time in the morning for me, for my practice, which I'm so happy I cultivated, because if I wouldn't have done that in the past and it came up to one of these moments and I was like, I don't know, let me just try to start meditating. No way would I have been able to just be like, I can meditate now under these circumstances. Nope, can't. it's only because of the years and the time that I put into it was I like, okay, I know what my practices are going to do. It's going to calm my nervous system. It's going to regulate dopamine. It's going to regulate everything in my body because I know how to do that. I can show up for that. So one, obviously that was really helpful, having that practice every day. Even if we had to get up at like 4 a.m. and go to a doctor's appointment, I made sure on that bus ride I'm doing some sort of, Joe Dispenza meditation. We'd usually do it together. So there was some sort of non-negotiable time inward before anything outward. Anything combating the doctors, working in those spaces, going to appointments, holding Lauren and whatever she's going through. Always, every day, something with me, something first, holding me. Because I had to show up for me. And you were a great reminder through that time of being like, hey man, remember to do the practices, remember to show up for you. Because I would do it, but then I would be like, okay, I did that. Now let me go straight into like, what does Lauren need? Do I need to make her the thing that's going to help her feel healthy? And do I need to blah, blah, blah to support her? But really remembering to fully do it, fully show up for me. Because that's the only way. That's the only way I could show up for her. Otherwise, I'm going to resent her. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, I'm doing all this for you and I'm drained. And no, I'm not there to resent her. I'm there to fully support her, which means I have to fully support me. Like I would not let that happen. So that was a big piece. And then the second piece I kind of alluded to, which is having support during that time from other people. A lot of people reached out because there was little moments we shared like in the hospital. She didn't really share what happened until just recently. But, we're going through this thing. This is happening. Can you send some love to Lauren? And, people reach out. Anytime you want to talk, I'll help. Let me know. A lot of people say that. A lot of people will say, reach out if you want help. But if I know they don't have capacity and they're just going to feel, or they're just going to hold me in sorrow, or they're going to say, I'm so sorry this happened, that kind of space, I actually don't want that. Like I noticed through that time, I want people that really have capacity, like you. Like the therapist I used to work with, I talked to him multiple times, just like, he has capacity because he does this as a profession. I know he's cultivated that space. So I go to him. I wouldn't just go to somebody that's like, hey, just reach out if you want. But I know they have their own things going on. It could be tough if you don't know them well enough to know if they have capacity. So I had a few people in my life that I could reach out to. So it wasn't just me holding me. It was me showing up for me while also allowing myself to be held by others, which was so valuable during that time. So those are like the main pillars through it. Of course, little things, here and there that I made sure that I would show up for. But being held by people, man, it was just that. It reminded me how important that is, especially as a man in this space. It's often that like brothers don't hold brothers, and we do this a lot, but it's so beautiful and it feels so good. Even if it's a sister that's holding me, like it just feels so right to be in that space. And it can take something that's devastating to actually remind you of like what serves you and what is actually helpful in your day to day. And so that was one of the things, is like actually asking for support, actually being held. That was the main pillar during that experience. Yeah.
Beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I want to circle back on those tools because, you covered a lot there, where you covered, the topic of titration, like releasing emotion. Yeah. You covered the topic of like setting the foundation, making sure you have your non-negotiables, your practices in that way. Yep. You covered the topic of making sure that you're resourced with the right people. Those, in my opinion, are the most important aspects of the personal transformational path. Like if you don't have those in place, you're messed up. You're not gonna be able to handle what life throws at you. And so I'm very grateful that you're able to bring those three things to the table. So what I'm curious, because a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people that you work with, a lot of people in our community, there's always this challenge of managing projections, managing people putting their on you. And with this circumstance, I know what was going on behind the scenes. And when you told me some of the stuff that was going on, I got pissed off, where I'm like, I can't believe that that's what's happening here. so many people deviate from the path because of people's projections, because of challenges, because of being triggered. One thing that was beautiful that I saw in you over the course of that journey is how much love, how much humor, how much play you were bringing to Lauren during that time. And it would have been really easy for you to drop into anger, to drop into frustration, to drop into a much lower frequency. Now, I know you really well, and that's not really, you've done the work to come out of that. And at the same time, when your loved one is threatened with something so serious, that's a big test for how you're going to stay in the frequency, not to mention the projections of all the other parties around you. What do you think was like the most, I guess, practical or powerful mindset, mantra, tool, whatever that was, to not let yourself get pulled into the narrative around you? Because there was a lot in so many different ways.
Yeah. I guess the thing that came up the most was in a time of challenge, everyone's pain surfaces. And what I mean by that is when something's difficult and people are being challenged in their beliefs, or this is what I'm seeing around me. People are being challenged in their beliefs, they think it's what's right. So like, you need to do that. So they're forcing that onto somebody else because it's their fear, it's their insecurity, it's their traumas around these things. And so it's their pain. So the thing, again, with cultivating this capacity of love, as much as I could be in love, that was the whole thing the whole time. It was like, if I can be in love most of the day, that's great. I'm doing it perfectly. And it doesn't mean that I won't feel things come up in my body and move it and all different emotional experiences. I can still be in love and recognize that I'm triggered and love that trigger and be like, wow, I see that's my pain. That's actually it doesn't even have to do with them. But when I notice this, and it had to do with family, what you're talking about predominantly is her family and navigating that space, I just saw their fears. I saw like they were projecting a lot onto her about what she should and shouldn't do, and like the right and wrong way, and like all of these different storylines that they thought were right. But I could just see the fear that they had. And it actually made me have compassion for them, because I could see that they were afraid, even if they weren't saying it. They weren't like, we're afraid for you, so we're saying this. It was, this is what you're supposed to do. There's a blah, 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 kind of announcing it as if it's truth, even though it's not objectively that. It's just their experience. But I could see through it. I was like, no, you are scared. And that's okay. I'm scared too. She's scared too. We're all scared. And what's going to actually support here is love. It's not going to be me being louder than you. The loudest person in the room is not the strongest. The one that has the most love inside of them is. And so that was so insightful. And I'm getting goosebumps right now and
I'm about to cry.
It's true though, man. Like that was one of the greatest lessons I've learned. And it was directly in my face of, wow, what capacity do I have to love here? Where can I really show up inside of love? Even if it's not shown back to me, even if everyone else is scared and afraid, can I be that too and show love to them without needing to prove them right or, tell them what I know? It's like, no, I can just hold them inside of love. So again, capacity for love. It was just, how big can my heart be with these humans, with the doctors, with the family, with Lauren, like whatever they're going through. I don't have any right answers, but if I can feel love, I know that that's putting us in the right direction.
That is the work.
Yeah.
Like if someone were to ask me to sum up why we do this, it's because of that. It's not to let things wash over us. It's not to be able to just like stand powerfully amongst, challenging circumstances. It's to be able to fucking love in those circumstances and to see people's pain being at the root of what they're projecting. Mm-hmm. That is everything in this world, in this work. And people talk about JC consciousness. They talk about heart resonance. That's fucking heart resonance. Mm-hmm. That's, I see you. Mm-hmm. And everything you're doing is just coming from fear, coming from pain. Yeah. No one can trigger you if you're in that state. The trigger doesn't affect you because it's not real.
It's not personal. It's
exactly.
not even about you. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, bro.
Yeah, of course. And of no way have I mastered that, but that's what I aimed for. That's what I intentionally would keep coming back to. And it was actually triggering at moments to be in that place because it would seem like, as this shirt states, radiate positivity, I'm being overly optimistic. It's interesting when it comes to this space of being inside of love, letting yourself feel the fear and also acknowledging the person's fear. Because my whole thing is that I go to the far end of the spectrum of love and I'm like, it's going to be beautiful no matter the outcome. Like no matter what happens here, it's going to be beautiful. We're all doing, this is happening intentionally. Like this is a divine script for us to write out. We're part of this. That's cool and all until you're like, no, this f***ing sucks. And that's what happened, with Lauren's experience where there was moments like, this just f***ing sucks. And I would acknowledge her best I could in that space. And there was times where she was like, I don't feel acknowledged. I feel like you're just being optimistic and not really acknowledging my pain. And so that's also hard because it's like being inside of love. If the other person doesn't see it, it can also sometimes be triggering even more so of like, but can you feel me in my fear, in my pain? So it is this dance of like, not just being this person that's happy-go-lucky and smiling all the time. That's my kind of go-to and what I've moved towards, but also being like, yeah, this f***ing sucks. And I'm going to hold you inside of love in it. But yes, this does suck. And that's okay to name that. I think I've also had to acknowledge that through this journey because my other way of being would be like, well, everything happens for a reason. And, we're going to get through it. Like, what could you look forward to instead of looking at the negative? Like that whole idea of optimism. But no, you got to drop that. That's not what love is. Love is not optimism. Love is acknowledgement of the full spectrum. Just like full expression. Full expression is not excitement. Full expression is the whole spectrum of emotions. But we often think, oh, it must be positive. It must be this thing that looks really bright and beautiful. It's like, no, it's all of it, but really feeling all of it and knowing it is all love and coming back to that. So learned a lot through this and continue to.
Yeah. And I remember you coming on because we were having our heart calls with Kyla.
Yeah.
And I remember you coming on that one day in particular where things were really tough and you were like, you had to work to not try to spin it into a positive. And you were working, and I remember you catching yourself where you're like, nope, I'm not going to say that. This just f***ing sucks.
Yeah.
And I find that such an important piece to bring up, especially with, the topic of igniting the human soul and all of that is, I think a lot of people that, they really glorify, like you said, the excitement, the joy, the positive side of things. And as humans, we demonize the negative side of things, right? And you can't have one without the other. And if we're overly drawn on positive excitement, then we're suppressing negative.
Well, then what
aspects
happens
of our
too
being.
is we feel bad for feeling bad.
Exactly.
We feel mad for feeling mad.
Yes.
And because we're mad, it makes us sad. And when we're sad, it makes us mad. And it's a
Exactly.
cycle it's a downward spiral. But if we could just feel the anger
and see it as anger and just this is anger.
Oh, look at that. It moves. But if we feel something about the emotion and identify us as that thing, then it's going to even spiral us deeper.
I love Thich Nhat Hanh's perspective on that, where he would always say, I am in love, I am in anger, I am in sadness, I am in frustration. He would never say, I am love, I am angry, I am mad, I am sad. It's I am in this. And it created this perspective of allowance for whatever was present to run its course. And I've really tried to apply that in my life for that exact reason, because it's not, damn it, I'm mad.
Yeah.
I hate being mad.
Then
or
you stay mad
I'm
longer
sad.
than it would
I'm
live.
so useless. Why did I be sad?
Yeah.
You know, and I notice this a lot with clients when we start working together, because we start feeling the whole spectrum. And they get upset at themselves for being sad or a mess or mad or frustrated. And they're like, oh, I know I shouldn't be thinking this way, but this is so annoying. And you go, no. Be with that frustration. Be with that anger. Allow for it. It's an emotion. It wants to move.
Yeah.
You know, and so I love that you're bringing that up, and I saw you in that state, really putting that to practice of being like, I'm not going to bypass this. I'm not going to avoid this. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just going to sit in the fact that this sucks.
Yeah. And I love this quote, and we'll have to look up to see who it's from actually originally, but bliss is any emotion fully felt.
Wow.
Bliss is any emotion fully felt. And I think that's so fucking powerful, because once you fully feel something, what you usually come into is that resonance of bliss. And it's not to say that that's more positive or it's anywhere on the spectrum. It just is. That's what is innately there if you fully allow any emotional experience to be felt.
Yes.
Powerful.
I love that. I love that so much.
It's once we get in our head and identify it as right, wrong, good, bad, then it spirals us in a direction that, is actually not even what it is in the first place. Emotions don't last that long.
No, this
it's
too
the
shall
idea
pass.
of what it is that lasts long, and the identification of what is that lasts.
Yes. And I'm going to harp on society for a second.
Get them.
The fact that we say, like, I feel bad right now. Why?
Yeah.
Why not I am in sadness. I am in anger. How can we have a I feel good, I feel bad? When I ask someone, how you doing? They say good. I'm like, next, please.
Yeah.
Try again.
Yeah.
How are you? I'm happy. Great. Awesome. I'm sad. Great. Awesome. Society has created positive emotions, negative emotions. It's just not the case. And we're so programmed to think that we should crave some and avert the others, which in Vipassana is the root of all suffering. And if we are implanted, or if we're programmed as children to think some emotions are good, some emotions are bad, and we are to crave the good and avert the bad, we're programming children with suffering, as opposed to, hey, all of your emotions, they're just emotions. They're not good or bad. They're here to be felt. Some hurt, some don't. But hurt isn't bad. Hurt needs to be felt. Hurt needs to be felt so bliss can be felt.
Yeah.
So in this whole kind of, narrative in society, it's very important that we start to really change that around I feel good or I feel bad. There is no good or bad.
Yeah, they're all teachers.
They're all teachers.
And this is what this episode's about, right? It's preparing for the unknown, which is cultivating capacity, which is understanding it's going to happen. But once we think this happened to me, that's where we misidentified the circumstance. This is just happening. And so once we can recognize that, whether it's an emotion, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's whatever the happened, how are we going to be in that space? And again, it's not to say feeling mad, sad, whatever doesn't apply here. Feel it all, but allow it all to show up.
And do not judge it.
And do not judge it. Exactly. They're all teachers. And so doing that in little ways now actually is the preparation for the big side swipe that is to come. Because it is to come, because it must. And it will.
That's life.
That's life. So those little moments throughout the day where we're kind of avoiding the little emotion to come through, or we're like, because we're all programmed with what you just said. We're all programmed with that. Oh my God, to be a good boy, to be a good girl, you don't cry, you don't, whatever it is. As boys, you don't cry. As girls, you don't get mad. That's the general terminology. That's how it works. We move like that, and that's what we're set with. Okay, good. Go live your life. Oops.
Wrong.
Can't do that. So then we're programmed with it. The more we can recognize what do we avoid, and then go into that. Go into that little piece. And this came up the other day, and I thought it was awesome. Avoid dance is a dance in the void.
You're play on words.
I love it, man. But it's so true. It's so can we actually play in that void and actually recognize the spaces that we have that we hide from ourselves? Like for me, the anger. Feeling anger was one I didn't really allow. In this time, I really allowed it to be felt. In the past year, more than ever, I allowed it to be felt and allowed it to recognize, oh, wow, anger can serve me. I can use this and actually move it in a way that's beautiful. I can actually allow it, and it feels actually good. Once I feel anger fully, it's bliss because I allow it. I don't store it and hide it. So when a circumstance happens, I can move it. And so these little moments of understanding our emotional experience is that cultivation of capacity.
Well, and this is called titration.
Yes.
in trauma release, and you know, so I think it's really important to get into the tools for people to use here to create that capacity. But emotional titration is one of the most important parts of someone's daily practice. And at the end of our training, one of my trauma release trainings, we were taught that if you're in an experience like a car accident, you know, you fall off your surfboard, you get eaten by the ocean, you slip climbing, whatever that is, if you're in a traumatic experience and you live, move that energy right away. Like scream if you're really scared, cry if you're really sad, you know, release if you're in a lot of pain, like just like shake if you're terrified, like really allow yourself to do that. And you can use breath work to help you do that, which is the second tool that we'll get into. But making sure that every single day as you feel these emotions, you let them seep out. It's like seeping air out of a balloon. And really allow for that. And so I think for everybody listening to this, the first thing you want to write down or note or, you know, plant into your subconscious is this concept of titration. Titrate your emotions every day. If you're frustrated, don't just be like, I'm frustrated. Go grab a pillow off the couch and scream into the pillow. It takes 2 seconds.
Make it somatic. Move it in the body.
Exactly. It has to move. And if you're feeling sad, sit down, have a little cry. Give yourself the space to do that. Not only is this going to help you create the capacity to manifest and create all the beautiful things you want to create in life, it's going to give you the capacity, the reservoir, so that you can handle the inevitable that life is going to throw at you. It's so important. So titration. We do that all the time. I beat the out of my pillows when I'm frustrated, when something doesn't work from a tech perspective and I can't figure out something tech wise. I move that energy, because I always use the analogy of paper, where it's like each of these little, like, oh, I'm frustrated, oh, I'm angry, oh, I'm sad, is one sheet of paper. And if you look at one sheet of paper, it doesn't look like much. But when you layer sheet after sheet after sheet after sheet after sheet on top of one another, you're going to get a stack of paper. And who's held a stack of printer paper? That's heavy. It's the exact same concept in our emotional body. So get rid of the paper. One piece as it comes. Just let it go. As it comes, let it go.
And I think this is beautiful too, because there's two parts in that, because some people with more experience in this, which we have listeners that are advanced in this. And so this reminder can be beautiful to, like, in the moment, do it. It happens, do it. That's the ideal, right? As soon as it comes up, do it. But if you haven't practiced this, that can be difficult, because you're around people that you're like, oh, can't I? And you feel trapped. You don't feel you can show up for it. If you cannot do it right after or right before that space, this is where your practices become so important, your morning and evening, because what you can do is reflect on that and surface that experience. You can go back and you can tune into that experience, because it is stored in the body. So whether you go back right away or if you go back 10 years later, you could still refine that emotional expression. So as soon as you can in the practice, which I've done many a times, where I'm like, I was in the moment and I didn't express it, and I'm like, ooh, I looked back, oh, I felt that, but I didn't really move it. In my practice, I'll check in with that. I'll bring it to life. I was mad about that thing and it came up and then go into that and then move that expression through my practice while I'm safe in my home. I feel good to express in my container, and I can fully bring it forward. So there's that. Ideally, it's in the moment, real time, somatic movement activation. Another way, which is a big tool here, is your practices, which we always talk about. And that can show up then, resurface that thing as fresh as possible. Bring that to life, because it does live within you. You just get to reactivate it and move it.
And playing off of that, then going into breath work is super important, because what Ryan's talking about right now is a very conscious occurrence that happened.
Yep.
That does not mean that your subconscious has not taken on a ton of stuff that you have blocked out, not to mention ancestral trauma, not to mention past life trauma, not to mention all of these energetic imprints that we carry with us. I always tell my clients, it's really important to do a deep dive breathwork session once a month to give yourself the space to create capacity in the subconscious and really enter a container where you can feel everything that you want to feel and fully express it, and have somebody that can hold you in bringing that to the surface. Super important. So highly recommend that you check out the one-day events we run. You check out Kyla's schedule. She's always running stuff in Canada. Very important to find a community where you can dip into this on a monthly basis. You are going to start feeling so light, so free, so clear after following a consistent practice like that.
And that's capacity. When you're noticing you're not holding the shit from the past, carrying it, dragging it with you, you can actually let go of that and show up for what's happening in real time. On that, community being a big one, because you tied it in because you were talking about breath, but you're also talking about having somebody or multiple people to hold you in that space. And through my journey, if I didn't have community to hold me and like people like you to go lean in with, I don't know how that experience would have been for me. I can hold myself to a certain extent, and I would say I'm pretty good at it. And still, stuff that came up when I was sharing with you, when I was sharing with my therapist, when I was sharing with people that kind of hold me in that, I would never actually surface with myself. I kind of held it back with me. And so stuff in the subconscious can also surface by getting questions by people that care about you, by getting insights from them, getting perspectives. But that's why having a community of people that you can actually deeply connect with, be seen by, and see as well. It's so fucking important. We've talked about community many times. We've referenced it. We've talked about our relationship and how we've navigated, how we do business together, but first and foremost, how we're brothers and how we got each other. It is so important. So if you notice that's something that's lacking in your space, go back and listen to our community episode, because we go into all the tools around that, cultivating community, how to find your people, how to find, the aliens on this planet that are as weird as you, but also how to find people that maybe are around you now that you need to dip into and deepen with. Because if stuff like this happens and you feel alone and you're like, nobody really gets me, and you feel that in an experience, whether it's yours or you're holding somebody else, oh, that's fucking horrible. That's horrible. You want people that are with you. And so finding those people before the event, before the slap in the face, is so valuable for the micro moments, for the experience now.
To have that relationship already built. Yes, I agree. And to kind of go to the other side of that as well is you need people around you that you don't pay.
Yeah.
And you need people around you that you do pay.
Yes.
Because the people around you that you don't pay, there's that feeling of like, this person just loves me. This person's got me. It's amazing. A lot of people fall into the category of thinking that's enough.
Yeah.
It isn't. Therapists, psychotherapists, coaches, space holders, people that spend their days creating capacity to hold people are essential. I have them. Ryan has them. Everybody we know in this work who is a space holder has these people. So very important to have a coach, have a therapist, even if you meet with them once a month just to unload your that right there creates capacity. And a lot of people are like, well, I can't justify the cost. And it's kind of like the health argument where people are like, oh, I can't afford to train. I can't afford supplements. I can't afford to eat healthy food. If you lose your health, you're going to be spending a lot of money trying to make up for that later. If you run into a problem and you don't have capacity, you're going to spend a lot of money trying to get it because something's going to take you out. It's going to sideswipe you and it's going to traumatize you. So these are investments. These are forward thinking experiences. These are, I have this person that helps me create capacity. I have these practices that help me create capacity. I have these experiences, these expressions that help me create capacity. I have this community that helps me create capacity. Set yourself up because like Ryan said, he had all of these things in place. And I'm telling you, you navigated it beautifully and still are. You know, this is a big reminder. Lauren is still very much in this. When you hear this episode, she's still going to be navigating this challenging aspect of her life. And thus, Ryan will be in it as well. This is an ongoing practice. This is something that is organic like the nature of life. And so it's very important to set yourself up in the right way to be able to dance with life in that way. Because if not, life's going to sideswipe you and it's going to be a lot more painful and you're going to try to fix it after. I promise. We see it all the time. Yeah.
Capacity takes commitment. Being the ones that love and care about you and the ones that you actually pay to support you, to purely be there to support you. This is commitment to your capacity. So if you don't already have capacity practices, this is your invitation. And maybe you do, and you're like, I actually see these areas that I've been hiding from myself or I haven't really brought forward. Now's the time to start unlayering that. Now's the time to start going into that. And if any of these areas we talked about, you don't have in some way, like we said, at least once a month with most of these things, that should be happening. And we talk about this from our experience, but also many people we've worked with. We've worked with many people that go through all the time because we all do. But having a commitment to your capacity is so damn important.
And this is why we do our challenges. So if you're going, oh my goodness, this is a lot. I don't know how to handle this. You guys just threw a bunch of stuff at me. Join our next challenge. It's a week of your time, 90 minutes a day. We're going to help you find one little nugget that's taking up capacity. We're going to help you alchemize that into that next step, that thing you want to bring forth. You're going to get a breathwork journey. It's not a lot of money to join these challenges. It's super accessible, okay? The next one will be in July 2023 at the beginning of the month. We haven't launched the link yet, but we'll add it to this episode once it's up. Follow us on Instagram. We always launch all the information there. Get on our e-list, all that stuff. But add that to your calendar. Prioritize that. You can be anywhere in the world. We have people tuning in from Europe, Asia, the US, Canada, Russia, like all over the place. We have people tuning into these things. So use that as a tool. We do 4 of them a year at the very least. Give yourself the ability to join each of those challenges. Create a bit of capacity. Start building this into your life because it will change the game. And the stuff we see people start doing after this week-long challenge is insane. It's insane how powerful we get when we free up just a fraction of what's inside.
Yeah. So you notice it's all correlated. It's all connected. And we're like, I can see now. And these are the Ignite challenges that we run. We've been doing these for over 2 years now. We put over 1,000 people through these challenges. We've seen so much. And it's something that we did from the first place just out of, we need to have something that's consistent that we can just serve, that we can just bring forward the medicine, that we can just bring for people to have transformation. People that, maybe can't afford the retreats or maybe can't afford these other things. Like, come into this container. We want to serve you. We want to serve people from all around the world. Maybe you can't come to the in-person thing. Or maybe you come to this and realize, oh, I do want to go to that thing. That does, of course, happen. But what this comes from is we wanted to serve more humans. We wanted to bring them into this medicine of transformation. We wanted to ignite humans around the world, which is where this podcast came from. But that's also where the challenge came from. To give you accessible tools in transformation in an instant, in an episode, over 5 days, whatever it may be. These challenges have shifted so much, and we love to do it. Like, it's so fun. I always look forward to it. We always have bomb-ass music. It's always such a good crew of people. Fun. Like, we embody it. It's activating in the body. Cam always brings some master lessons, so you learn a lot through it. And I always bring some weird-ass playful stuff that we get to move through, of course. But it's this full spectrum that we go through in a week. And it's fun as hell. And it's deep. It's confronting, of course. But it's the work.
And that's how we roll. Fun and playful, never at the compromise of reverence and depth.
Yes.
That is how we roll. That, in our opinion, is the contemporary method of transformation.
Yep.
And true titration. Going deep, coming alive. Going deep, coming alive. Going deep, coming alive. There we go. I knew it was coming. Nice. On that note, crew, before we close, I just want to ask all of you as well, take a moment, close down your eyes, come into love, send Lauren some healing energy, send her some good vibes. We are huge believers in the power of collective consciousness. We are huge believers in the power of focused intention and what it can do. So please just take a moment, open up her Instagram, look at her beautiful smiling face. Its Instagram is at the well-being. Yep. Okay. Open that up, look at her face, bring her into your heart, and send her some healing, loving energy. She is a goddess. She is a queen. She is such an amazing person and a huge part of our community. So just asking that everybody take a moment for that.
Thank you, brother.
Of course.
Thank you all. Love you so much. Appreciate you. It's good to be back.
We got magic coming.
Stay lit.
Stay lit.